Hello, everyone, and welcome back to SSRG and Your View. Today, we thought it would be important to talk about equality and how equality can, in itself, be discriminatory. And part of the reason I think is because a lot of the time people are always asking, what's the difference between equality and equity? How do they measure? And I think part of the reason people started talking about equity instead of equality is that recognition that equality can be discriminatory in its nature. So I want to start by asking my colleagues, what's the difference between equality and equity?
Okay, so I will just jump in. The difference between the two concepts, equality and equity, is that just like the name implies, equality means giving people support equally, or giving people attention equally, or giving people anything, whether goods or services, equally. But equity means giving people anything based on individual needs. Because, for example, the four of us recording this video right now, if somebody decides to give us 50,000 naira each, that is equality. Everybody gets 50,000. But it is possible that within the four of us, I have much more financial need than the other three people. Maybe I have a sick mom, I have a lot of things to pay, and maybe I do not even have a job. But Prince already has a job, for instance, and earning some good salary per month. Let's just assume that. So if you give Prince 50,000 and also give me 50,000, 50,000 is not going to do anything for me, but Prince might just have it as his savings. So equity is when you begin to recognize that I need more money than the other person, and then you give Prince 30 and give me 70 instead. That's just an example. It mustn't be financial. So, and
Mm-hmm.
I think that based on our discussion today, I think it's also going to anchor on how equality generally might not really serve everybody the same purpose. But I will stop here for now.
Okay,
Right?
just to add what Ima said, I think I would say that um, equity as opposed to equality ensures fairness because with equality, while on surface level it could mean, oh, you're giving everybody equal, so it's fair. You see that persons who are already in leading positions will continue to lead because you are giving the same thing to them with someone who is far behind. But with equity, you're saying, oh, you are at this point. Let us give this person something that will make him be at the same point as you. So that means more fairness than equal, as opposed to just giving people the same thing. When you judge them, you judge people by same metrics when they have different capabilities or backgrounds or contexts. So that's what I think about it.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, I think added to what you guys have said, Ima and Hope, is that when we think about like inequality or discrimination or inequality being a trajectory or kind of on a spectrum, and people are at different ends of that trajectory and spectrum, it doesn't make sense to want to hand people equal resources to correct for years of inequality or oppression or marginalization that they have been facing. So equity, the argument about equity is that this person is worse off. We know that economically this person is disadvantaged, this person is disadvantaged, but when we think about who is worse off compared to the other person, then we might want to provide more resources. And the good thing about equity is that it does it in such a way that it gives you what you need, just like Emma has mentioned, in such a way that you do not feel deprived of resources. Even though I get something higher, if I get 100,000 and you get 50,000, for example, I do not feel a
Yes.
sense of you're getting more, because at the end of the day, we come to that baseline kind of
An
similarity. Although,
equilibrium.
yeah, we can never be homogeneous, but we can come to that comparable standard where we see that everybody is enjoying life the way they should, basically quality of life.
I'm it's interesting because you mentioned that the beauty of equity is that it gives people what they need. But if you look at popular narrative in our world today, especially in places where people are equity oriented, you would realize that there are people who are arguing that that equity is discrimination against them, especially people who have been ahead that are not receiving what other people are receiving, people who are behind are receiving, are arguing that that's not giving them what other people are receiving is discrimination. But that's not where I want to head to now. I want to ask why is equality discriminatory in nature?
Well, just like we've talked about, because for you to answer that question, you also have to think about the definition of the two concepts, just like we've tried to demystify right now. So, the reason why equality could be discriminatory is that, what is discrimination actually? Discrimination is not recognizing the needs of some persons or doing things in a way that excludes some people. This is discrimination. So equality has the potential to do that, because when you try to attend to everybody at equal level, it means you are going to overlook people who have special needs, for example. So, for instance, if we are talking about, providing educational facilities, and we say, okay, this is what every faculty at the University of Nigeria should get in terms of buildings or infrastructure, but we fail to recognize that perhaps the psychology department has about 10 students, living with disabilities. So that infrastructure should make provisions for those students. But if you give all the faculties in UNN the same infrastructure, you have excluded those students and they are being discriminated against. So that is an instance of how equality can be discriminatory. And also, for instance, when we talk about, there is this concept of cosmic unfairness, which is the idea that naturally some parts of the world have much more resources than others. And also, some parts of the world, some have disadvantage history. They have a history of disadvantage. So, for
Yeah.
example, if you are trying to provide opportunities to people from different parts of the world, equality says, okay, we are going to give the same opportunities to all these people. But then you fail to recognize that there are some people that, right from their ancestry, they have been disadvantaged. We have to make special provision for those people. And the moment you don't do that, that is discrimination. So that is one
So
way
it's like
I
equality
think
it's
can
like
what
discriminate.
it's like telling a visually impaired person to do driving test the same way that people who can see would do a
yeah.
driving test and expecting
Excellent.
them to have equal results. So
Excellent.
Yes,
sorry, go on.
what Ima said is exactly like we've throughout the classes I've had this semester, like we always talk about equality and equity, especially within the education system. And the example he gave was exactly one of the things we talked about in class. But then let's also look at, I think the quota system in Nigeria is a good example of equity, because you
Or
know that
affirmative action
yeah,
in the
because
US.
you know that in some parts of Nigeria, some children do not have access to education as others have in other parts of Nigeria. And so if you say, oh, the only criteria for university admission is if you reach a certain cutoff mark, you know that due to probably socioeconomic issues, the lack of maybe state resources for in some states, students may not be able to reach that quota that you are giving to the entire students. And so you bring up a system where students from that background can measure up to the others. So it's not necessarily taking away from others, it's but making sure that everybody have like an become on an equal playing field. I don't know if you get what I mean. So
Yeah, I think added to what you guys have said, I think there is a sense of neoliberalism that comes in when people argue that equity, like twisting your argument that equity or equality is like providing equity is discriminatory.
Yeah.
That neoliberalism basically means seeing individuals' problem as primarily their issue, like the
Yes.
constitution themselves, they
There is
are
no
not,
historical antecedent to the issue that they are facing. Yes.
they are poor because they are not educated. They are
And
suffering
it's
this,
their fault that they are not
and it's
educated.
but if we think about the structural aspect of where people are, then we see the need to provide more to them. Because that the you mentioned the quota system, and we just think that, oh, northerners were born to be uneducated or less educated. No, there are
Yes.
structural reasons behind why they are not as educated as other regions of the country. And so to correct for that issue, we need to provide more resources to them. And however that resources would be in terms of creating more quota for them, admitting more students, reducing their cutoff mark in any way or form, just to give them, because also when they get into the university, they mingle with people that can also like improve their educational outcomes and stuff like that. So that's just what I wanted to add.
Okay, now I'm
Yeah.
going to throw in a little curveball. So we've talked about equality, we've talked about equity. What about social justice? How does social justice come into this conversation?
Okay, so in just to make it very clear, let me pick from where TC stopped
I like
because
that I didn't tell anybody that social justice is coming and I just threw it in.
I
yeah,
mean, it's
yeah,
pretty clear that we
yeah,
need
yeah. But if, just to begin, just to make it
Yeah.
clear, maybe to our viewers who may not be conversant with this, social justice is when you now try to reduce barriers, the barriers that stop people from attaining that maximum. So you don't even have to think of who gets more or who gets less. So you try to clear the roadblocks that stop people from gaining things themselves. So that's why I wanted to pick from where TC stopped, because he used northerners for instance, that yes, there are a lot of reasons, maybe socio-political or cultural reasons, as to why they are not more educated or more educated,
As
as,
educated as the other parts of Nigeria.
yeah,
Yeah.
as educated as other parts of Nigeria. So social justice, for instance, is when you try to remove whatever barrier it is that is stopping them from being educated, so that in the university you don't even need to consider giving them more admission or reducing their tuition fee or reducing whatever it takes that will make them want to come into the university. So this is social justice, for example. And when I was talking, I also gave an instance of maybe somebody wanting to give us 50,000 each, and Prince already has a job, and the reason I should get 70,000 instead is because I am jobless. So social justice tries to remove whatever reason why I do not have a job, so that I can have a job just like Prince, so that when somebody brings money to share, I don't have to think about getting more. So if I
Excellent.
understand correctly, this is how social justice comes in. So when we talk
Yes.
about the concepts of equity and equality, social justice is now trying to, to remove the main reason why equity and equality are even coming into the picture in the first place.
I think, yeah, I think added to what Ima has said is that there is justice and then there is the social justice, which is collective justice for everyone. So it's not just an individual seeking reparation for the harm that has been done to them. It's in recognizing that even neighborhood disadvantage, for example, leads to years of deprivation and other sort of outcome. Are there schools in that neighborhood? What's the crime rate in that neighborhood? Do they have resources, infrastructure in that neighborhood? These are things that eventually lead to problems or harms in the future. And so social justice would just tell you, okay, let's build more schools in this environment. And this was part of what Goodluck Jonathan was doing back then. Even though he was opposed, their margeries, building schools and trying to
Of
educate
course,
them.
because the political elite wanted people uneducated so that they can take advantage of them. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean that's just a typical example of how social justice would correct or create equity in the society.
So I'm going to wrap up, and I seriously enjoyed your conversations. I just wanted to say this because this is an example that I think about when I think about equality, equity, and social justice. So if you are watching a football game or soccer game, and there is a fence, and you give people crates to stand on, the same height of crates to stand on, it means equality. So which means if somebody is tall enough, after standing on the crate, they can watch the game. They can look over the fence and watch the game. If somebody is short, irrespective of the fact that they have the same height of crate, they won't still be able to watch the game. So what equity does is that it looks at people's height and gives them crates according to their height
To
to
their
help them
height.
watch the game. However, what social justice does is social justice would ask, why is there
Why
even
is
a
the
fucking
fence there?
fence
Okay.
there?
Why is the fence there in the first place?
So let us remove that fence. And once we remove that fence, everybody can enjoy the football. And that is how why social justice trumps all of these
All
things.
of them.
Yes. So
We
thank
need
you so
we
much.
need social justice for closed access journals. Can we blocking us
True, I do agree with that.
from
But
downloading
But always
downloading
listen to that kind
articles?
of discussion, guy.
We need that because they are a big barrier to me personally.
it's a barrier to access to education, but that's a
Education,
conversation for
yeah.
another day.
God,
So
I
thank
beg.
you all for, your insightful discussion, and we'll see you in
Make
the
sure
next
to
one.
like, subscribe, and share.